your experience? Do they have kind of their own that you could tell it's from, say, Norway, Norwegian farm, Lithuanian farm, or is it just a mix, a melange of things? Or can you spot a national or regional characteristic?
I don't think I would say that you could taste kind of the national borders. For example, Stjørdalsøl and Gotlandsdrikke are quite similar. And there's nothing with Safti. Maybe you could recognize the baker's yeast, but then they use the same one in Estonia, so it is kind of a melange. Yes, there's a lot of different regional differences, and I would say each of the regions have their special characteristics, but it's not like you can assemble it into this is Norwegian, this is German. That doesn't make sense, really.
Right. Yeah. So it's very regional.
Yes.
And Belgium, does Belgium still? I mean, Belgium's kind of a unique case. I don't know, Janis, you come in here because Belgium obviously kept this. When it was dying out everywhere else, it kept a very strong beer culture. But I don't know how much of it is farm based. Like there was the Abbey based ones and that, but.
Of course, you have the Abbey-based ones, and then the farmhouse that turned into Saison. But I think Lambic is probably like the closest to what we could call farmhouse. Or also the way that it evolved 20, 30 years ago. Like it was also like a style which was basically the Belgians, they didn't like it anymore until the Americans came, and they hyped it up and they started buying bottles. And now I think Lambic is one of the most hyped up products in the world. Like it's probably the cheapest beer to make ingredient wise. Of course, you need some barrels and some time and some space for it, but ingredients wise, it's the cheapest. And if you see the prices for those bottles, it's crazy. But I think the approach on brewing, the rudimental basic approach, is pretty similar to a lot of farmhouse brewers. Like stepping into a brewery like that, or stepping into a shed where a home brewer is brewing, and if it makes me shiver, I'm happy. That's the same thing the first time that I stepped into Cantillon, and you saw all those barrels, they were covered with fungus. Like, yeah, it's hard to believe that if you brew that way, that you can brew decent beer. But real farmhouse brewing is dead in Belgium. The closest we still have is Lambic.
Yeah, and like I said, a lot of that is, I mean, the Lambics, like I said, they're a bit overhyped because a lot of them, it's even the same wort and the same, it's down to the blending then, I suppose.
It's done is it? I think a hype is always ridiculous. Is it a beautiful product? Definitely. Do we have overhyped blenders or brewers? Also, definitely. Do we have underestimated? It's hard to see the difference if you're talking about hypes. We have a lot of good producers here, and some sell their bottles for ridiculous amounts and sell them for €10 for a bottle, which is pretty cheap.
I mean, maybe Lambic is an interesting example to talk about how a beer type or a local beer brewed changes. Because 10 years ago, if you would have asked me, I would have said that a Lambic, like a goose, is a beer blended with specific ratio of wheat, specific turbid mash, specific process, and in very much most cases, this is also a blend of wort produced at different breweries. Whereas I think if we look at the gooses produced nowadays in the last 3 years, most of them are actually single brewery products. Whereas 10 years ago, they were usually blends of like wort produced at 3 or 4 or 5 different breweries. And I think we can definitely talk about that goose has changed, because if the wort is produced at one brewery only, there's much less variety, but it also has pushed goose or Lambic in a very specific direction, which has been beneficial. But I'm sure that you could have produced similar, or like you could have produced similar excellence, but very different flavors by trying to improve on this process of using different breweries to produce wort. But it's also something that is rarely talked about. And I think this is how change usually happens. It's not like in the big conceptual elements that we all recognize, but it's slowly happening through practical steps, one at a time, until it's clearly standing out enough that it can be named.